There we go.
Morning, Tim.
Good morning, everybody.
Sorry for the delay. We had some technical difficulties.
No issues. I was just asking Chief Ambrose, is it like university, no professor in 15 minutes, I'm excused?
No.
Still got to write the exam at the end.
All right, I guess we'll get started with the meeting then. So I call the meeting to order at 10:08. And before we get into the meeting, maybe we'll take a minute of silence to show our support for the families of the 5 fallen officers recently. Thank you. Prior to today's meeting, the board met in closed session to review and discuss matters that, in their opinion, fell under Section 34(5) of the Services Act, as well as the Owen Police Services Bylaw number 1. We have a motion for approval of the agenda. Thank you. Seconder? Jill, thank you. All in favor? Carried. Any declaration of conflict of interest arising out of the minutes and matters listed on the agenda? Hearing none. Presentations and deputations and public question period. Today we have Margaret's coming in for a presentation for the strategic crime, and I think Chief already did the introductions, but I think for people that are signed in or logged in and viewing us on Zoom, if we could just go with us again.
Thank you. So good morning, everyone. Happy to introduce Mark Load, our new analyst, comes to the service with a wealth of experience with her policing background, and this will be her first presentation to the board of many, I'm sure. And once we start to get a little bit more analyst and intelligence driven as a police service, I think we'll see the benefits of that from Mark's presentation both this morning and in the coming months. And Mark's done a lot of work and was doing great work with the business planning and starting that cycle again next year. So, Mark, turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Chief. Thank you, everyone. It's been a wonderful, warm welcome here at Owen Sound Police Service, and really great to be here. Thank you all for having me today. So, do you want me just to jump right into the presentation? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so I pulled together some highlights for myself and for you from 2 of my favorite Stats Canada. People say that in public, they have favorite stat reports, but 2 of them in this presentation today. One is from the Police Personnel and Expenditure, and the other one is from the Annual Police Reported Crime. So some of this, I have to say, I selfishly did for my own understanding and context to really better understand how the Owen Sound Police Service fit into the landscape of municipal policing across Ontario, and also to understand some of the crime that the officers are dealing with here. But it also provides really good context and background for you as board members and for members of the senior staff here with the service, as we'll collectively be embarking on a new strategic service or a strategic business plan in the new year. And this is really good background for that as we begin that process. So from the first report from Stats Canada, like I said, it's an annual publication called Police Personnel and Expenditures Across Canada. It's really most of the information in this report is gathered from an annual survey that every police service has to complete in May each year. The 2020 collection did not occur due to COVID, so there is a gap in 2020 data. And what Stats Canada has traditionally not traditionally, but has newly started to do is to release an infographic along with their reports and the data tables that become available. So I did include the infographic in the board package. It's a really great snapshot and a visual of some of the key trends that are happening with police resources. So just as a quick highlight of some of those trends across Canada, since 2011, the rate of police strength was declining, but in 2020, they saw for the first time that the police strength had remained stable. Certainly, the COVID pandemic was impacting a lot of things, and one of them was the cost for providing personal protective equipment, or PPE, to police services. And it's estimated that over 33 million in costs were utilized to buy all those different masks, goggles, hand sanitizer, disinfectant, all those things that our frontline responders and even people working in the station like dispatchers were required to carry on throughout the pandemic. We did see crime and calls for service drop across Canada in 2020 and 2021, and you'll see some of those similar trends, in sound. We're seeing the number of female police officers in all ranks growing. The report shows or reports that more specifically, we're seeing an increase in female officers in some of the higher ranks, which is good. Also, a growing number of visible minorities and representation from Indigenous peoples. That's now being monitored, but that are coming into the ranks of police officers, as well as a growing number of civilian staff as employees. So that's kind of an overview of some of the changes across Canada, and then you can see how some of that is playing out in Owen Sound as well. So this graph here captures some information for some other municipal police services. Across Canada, there's 137 standalone municipal police services, 36 First Nations self-administered police services. We've got provincial police services in Ontario, Quebec, and Newfoundland, and then also over 670 RCMP detachments across Canada. So within Ontario, there's 42 municipal police services, or at least there was at this point in time in 2021. They are serving populations that range from a high of 3 million in Toronto to the smallest population of just 5,500 in Gananoque. So this graph here and in the report shows the 18 municipal police services across Ontario that are serving populations of less than 50,000. So you can see Owen Sound is the dark bar or the navy blue bar, so serving just over 22,000 according to the population from the Police Administration Survey. So throughout some of the stats I'm going to show you in the rest of the presentation, I'll use these 18 different municipal services just as kind of comparators or benchmarks. Just keep in mind every single municipal police service is in a municipality that has unique geography, different population densities, different factors that drive policing needs, seasonal population changes, student populations that may come or go. So again, there's no one perfect indicator that Owen Sound can compare itself with, but I'm just offering a number of others here just for context. So this is looking at the authorized police officer strength at the Owen Sound Police Service. So we're right now authorized at 41, and that authorized number has been the same since 2009. So that's the bar here going across, and we can see the Police Administration Survey recorded a population in Owen Sound of 22,657. The recent census data that came from the 2021 census recorded Owen Sound's population a little bit lower at 21,600. And then this dot up here represents the 2017 market area data report that projected the 2021 Owen Sound population at over 39,000. So I just kind of wanted to give you that range that we're here. So most of the data that we're using is coming from the police administration survey, but it is important factors when we look next at this very traditional measure of police resources, which we call the COP to POP. So it's the authorized policing strength to the rate of population divided by 100,000. So it's relatively comparable. So with 41 authorized sworn officers, Owen Sound Police Service comes in with a COP to POP or at 181, which is right just about around the average of Ontario, a little bit lower than Canada, but right around the average of these other 18 smaller municipal police services. Their average came in around 175. The basic math of the common denominator on the bottom, that population can have a big influence on the ratio. So if you calculate that same COP to POP ratio, but use the market area survey population of 39,000, it drops your COP to POP ratio down to 105, just as an example to see how that population impacts it. So again, the available police personnel to the demands, to the needs of the population are key considerations in the level of policing service that Owen Sound Police Service is able to provide, but it also is a good consideration when thinking about the expectations of the community when it comes to policing services. So this graph is looking at the actual personnel. So this is, whereas the authorized number of police personnel doesn't change much, actual is, it could change on a daily basis depending on hires, resignations, retirements. So this data from the survey is taken, it's basically a snapshot at one point in the middle of May each year. And in 2021, Owen Sound Police Services actual staff was at a high around 82 at that point in time. And that was composed of 42 civilians, a total of 40 police officers, 33 that were male and 7 that were female. So similar to the national trends, we can see growing number of civilian staff and a very slight increase in the percentage of female officers. And I understand that there's also several sworn members now from population groups designated as visible minorities. So that's certainly really good. Okay, so moving on to the police report of crime in Canada. So this is the second Stats Canada report. Chief Ambrose shared some of the crime severity index numbers with you at the previous board meeting. So I try not to repeat that and just kind of add a few more details to provide a little more context. So again, I attached the infographic in your board package that goes through some of the highlights of crime in Canada in 2021. Again, as the chief mentioned too, crime is very much connected to many different aspects of society, social determinants of health, homelessness, economics, addictions, mental health. Reported crime is never really a solely police issue. Across Canada, there was obviously significant impact in reported crime due to the COVID pandemic and its connection to different changes in society. But we did see in Canada increase in violent crime throughout 2021. That was driven by increases in level 1 sexual assaults, offenses related to criminal harassment and threatening, hate-motivated crimes, firearms offenses, homicides, and also a rise in opioid-related offenses. So we'll see some of those trends did appear in Owen Sound as well as I go through some of the local information. When we're talking about crime in the next couple of slides, please keep in mind that the crime incidents that police respond to or calls for service, generally speaking, is less than a third of those calls end up with a criminal violation attached to it. So this is less than a third of the workload, the demand that police are involved with. So things like dealing with check well-being, suicides, mental health calls, sudden death, neighbor disputes. All of those different demands on police officers' time generally don't get captured. Like there are a lot of non-criminal workload. So this is really just focusing on the criminal workload for police. All right. So this is the violent crime severity index for those 18 other smaller municipal police services in 2021. So Owen Sound, again, these are ordered by population in the same order that you saw previously from Cornwall to Gananoque on the right. Owen Sound came in at a violent crime severity index of 128 in 2021. So that was after dropping just over 6% from the previous year. So you can see just visually that it is one of the higher violent crime severity index compared to those other police services. It was higher than Ontario and Canada, and then the average of these other 18 police services was 88. So we see it with Cornwall came in a little bit higher, Timmins here, and this is Smith Falls and Brockville, which came in a close index there. This is the non-violent crime severity index here. So again, not as high above the average, but high above the average. Anyway, Owen Sound came in around 90, and that was also after a decline of over 9% from the previous year. It was still above the average of Ontario and Canada, and above the average of about 75 for these other 18 smaller municipal police services. So the non-violent crime severity index includes property crime and also other criminal code offenses. And then this next graph here is the weighted clearance rate in these same municipal police services. So the clearance rate represents the portion of criminal incidents that have been cleared by charge or cleared otherwise. In this case, it's good to have a higher number. We want to see more crime being cleared. Generally speaking, the violent crime has a higher clearance rate because often, like it involves people, so often there's more, evidence or people saw the person that was assaulting them. So there's generally a higher clearance rate with violent crime versus property crime, which has a generally lower clearance rate. So this one that you're seeing is the total combined. Owen Sound came in at 56% of total crimes cleared, and there is a little bit of math going on behind there. There's some weighting based on the severity of that crime that Stats Canada does on their end. But just to give you an idea, Owen Sound's clearance rate for violent crime was at 77%, and their non-violent clearance rate was at 45%. But this is the total here. So it is really positive to see this statistic above the average of Ontario, Canada, as well as the average of those other 18 municipal police services. It is also impressive when we think that the clearance rate rose by over 5% from 2020 as well. So certainly this one shows a great work being done by the officers here. So the other thing I like to look at along with rates and indexes is actual numbers of crime. So as far as the total criminal code violations in 2021, Owen Sound Police Service, there was just around 2,000 incidents of violent crime, or of all criminal code offenses. Sorry, this is violent crime down here, property crime, and other criminal code. So just below 2,000 when you don't include traffic and federal offenses, just over 2,000 if you were to include traffic. You can see that it is down slightly since 2019 and 2020, likely mixed in with all the influences of the pandemic there. I did check in just out of curiosity where we're at in 2022 as far as reported crime. There is a bit of a delay in coding things, so that's why this information isn't released until July, August the following year. But around this time, it looks like I would predict based on our numbers that you'll probably see crime counts in the pre-pandemic levels for 2022. So likely seeing an increase from 2021, probably closer to what we've seen in 2019. Just based on some early numbers. So if we just look at each of these individually, so we'll look at these 549 reported violent crimes into the Owen Sound Police Service in 2021. Look, you can see from the pie graph, although the text is very small, sorry about that. Some of the driving crime types in this category, we've got up here assault level 2, so that's assault with weapons or bodily harm. We've also got assault level 1, so that's less serious assault, but certainly assaults are a big driving factor here. This big chunk here is criminal harassments and uttering threats. And you'll recall that a lot of those were similar to the national trends in changing crime across Canada too, an increase in uttering threats and criminal harassment. As far as things that went up, overall, there was a decline in violent crime, but of the specific crime types that rose in 2021, there was that homicide in Owen Sound that you're all aware of. We saw an increase in assault against peace officers, which is, although only 13, it was an increase. And there was also a rise in indecent and harassing communications. When we look at non-violent crimes, so crimes against property and other criminal code offenses, you can see that thefts under 5,000 are a really big driving factor here. Fraud, mischief, and then this chunk here is administration of justice violations. So a lot of that is your breaches of probation here, which is of the ones that the crime types in this category that rose. We did see that breach of probation was certainly on the rise in 2021, as well as counterfeiting, weapons possession, trespass at night, which is captured under other violations. Yeah, but again, an overall decline, but those are some of the things of note in this category. So anyway, I have one more slide here just to share with you, and this is one of my favorites here. So what this one does, and you won't find this in a Stats Canada report anywhere, but it takes the total number of criminal incidents captured over the course of the year and divides it by the total number of authorized police officer strength to get an average of the criminal workload per officer in Ontario. So again, I've laid it out here just as a comparison with the 18 other municipal police services. And you can see here that Owen Sound has an average of 49 criminal offenses being dealt with per officer over the course of the year, which is significantly higher than the average in Ontario. It's actually more than double Ontario. It's more than Canada and more than the average that we see for these other 18 municipal police services. Again, it's important to emphasize that this doesn't include all those other non-criminal things that police officers get involved with. And it also is an average. So in most other police services, you have not every single officer is investigating criminal offenses. You've got some in the, doing training, some doing community outreach or core officers. So this is an average, but it speaks very well considering the high clearance rate that came through. Is that the Owen Sound Police Service is really providing great service to the community, great return on the investment. So just, yeah, with that, I'll just wrap up. And as Chief highlighted too, Owen Sound does appear to be a really safe community. Proactive response to calls for service and working with our community partners will help address the crime rates that we're seeing and come up with some more long-term solutions. And I hope that this background and this context will be valuable as we look ahead to the next 4 years of reviewing the strategic priorities. Thank you.
That's great, Margaret.
The only question I have is, it seems to bother me because when you talk about your community and your number of officers, doesn't always relate. For example, population of Orangeville, when they had their municipal police service, it's 5,000 during the day and 20,000 at night. Ours is 20,000 at night, 40,000 in the day. How do you calculate? How do you explain that? You know, it's
Well, again, it's a number. when they calculate those ratios, and I think it's always really important to understand the story behind the numbers when you're interpreting it. And that was why I wanted to kind of show when you change that population, like say even in Owen Sound, if you've got an influx of people shopping and coming into the river district, it certainly changes the dynamics. That one number can't capture all those unique characteristics, but and it does have to be understood in that context for
Thank
sure.
you. Any other questions? Well, thank you, Mark. That was great.
All right.
Appreciate
I think
it.
I learned a lot. And I'm sure you'll be back for more presentations.
Right. So you want me to just go through?
Yeah.
Okay, so just I don't have a presentation for this one, just a quick board report. So looking ahead, I had proposed a draft work plan for the development of the next strategic plan for Owen Sound Police Service. So that's kind of a proper forward and the police service. So presenting the work plan to you today for your feedback. Thinking ahead to the next board meeting in November, thought that would be a really good time to review the progress of the goals and objectives that were set forth over the last 3 years, considering challenges, successes, and things that have become part of day-to-day operations already, and some of those other reach ahead goals and things that we want to carry forward over the next 3 or 4 years. Do that with you and the rest of the team here at Owen Sound Police Service. And then there's some consultation that's required with the community, with their members, and look ahead to putting together the priorities and the goals. So proposing a community online survey throughout November and December, a member survey over that period of time, as well as potentially 2 facilitated workshops, which I understand that you did last time for this, with some key community partners and stakeholders to really dig in a little deeper with them about their priorities and their concerns and their issues and things that they want police to keep doing and maybe things that, you know, more or less. So a couple of those, we don't have dates for those set, but that's today too, just because I know everyone's schedules get really busy and December isn't an ideal time to do any of that. But yeah, and if we move forward with that plan, I would foresee that we could share the results of all the consultation with you in the new year and aim to have a draft plan put together by February next year. But certainly love to hear your feedback on that.
Yeah, so Mark's put, as you can see, Mark's put a bit of a timeline together to keep us on track. And so I think it's a good and it's workable plan. And we can do some external consultations that are happy early December. By the middle of December, everything's slowing down. But we can set some dates for early December that would work. For the facilitated workshops, the online surveys can start as soon as we get them drawn up and drafted. So a lot of the times are very similar year to year, plan to plan, and looking at what's going on. But I think the facilitated workshops are the ones where we got the most feedback the last time. Although we had good community online survey participation last time, we had a number of it was well marketed, it was well put out through social media, and we got quite a few more responses than we ever have in the past. So I'm hoping that continues to grow. Certainly as interest in policing and as the challenges in the community continue, with homelessness and other social determinants of health and all those issues that we feel the effects of from the downstreaming to police. Hopefully, community comes online and helps create the direction that we move forward and how we handle some of those circumstances. Just looking for the board approval to move forward and set this plan, set Mark's plan in motion.
Just a question. We've got a line item there on new council, November 15th. Are you going to make a presentation to the council, or what is the road?
That was more just kind of a point in time
Okay,
for
fair enough,
myself.
fair enough.
But we would certainly want to invite the elected officials to participate in one of those facilitated workshops. So I wanted to make sure that we would book it after that date, so that we've got any new council members, you know, at the session, or at least invited.
Yeah.
And I know that the city manager was on the call here. has already set up some new training for the council members, and I've been invited to attend. I haven't been told what I have to do yet, but I'm actually direction on what he wants to hear for that.
Just keep your presentation under 2 hours.
Will be brief.
I just, we ran those consultations at Best Western, so I think just on capacity, we have a space here.
We ran them in health.
Sorry, help me.
So we'll
Do we
probably
need any kind of cost pool or anything like that, or?
if we can get the facility to help you again. Great charge.
Yeah. The city also has the citizen engagement tool on their website to try and do surveys and things like that that might be of use. Just can't find it, but anyway.
And we've certainly expanded our outreach in the community and within many of those groups in the last 3 years. So I expect we'll get a good turnout, probably better than we did the last time from a number of our community partners as we've developed those partnerships. I'm sure we'll hear lots of good, valuable input.
We need a motion to go ahead with this. Kurt? For the seconder. Joe, thank you. So let's go to see the next draft.
Any questions? Any other questions from Mark? Before we move on?
Great.
Wonderful, yeah.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Right, moving on to item number 5, confirmation of the minutes of the public session held September 28th, 2022. Motion, Joe, thank you. Seconded. Right. All in favor? Okay. Any business arising out of the public session minutes September 28th, 2022? There we go. Correspondence received. You all would have received in your package the Crime Stoppers Rivers Coordinated Report, July through September. Shows it. Crime Stoppers River Working Community. Moving on to Chairman's report. The only I've got to report is that on November 9th and 10th, Chief and I will be attending the Ontario Association of Service Board Labor Conference in Toronto. It's a 2-day event, so we'll report back to them and learn in our December meeting. Moving on to reports from Inspector Bishop.
Thank you. Starting off with criminal investigations and drug enforcement unit. First item there is of some interest. CPSA did an intercept on package testing for residents up here in Owen Sound. It's coming from a online weapons supplier down in Florida. 4 prohibited devices in that package, which are large capacity magazines for block handguns. 2 of those ones, the 50 round ones, are actually drum magazines for find an automatic weapon. Our CID unit arrested 2 suspects of that, executed search warrants at 2 Owen Sound addresses. 2 male parties were charged with offenses relating to importing firearms, devices, as well as controlled drugs and substances. So, going into a lot of detail, those were not individuals that were going to take those to target range, and yes, so that certainly causes us some concern. We've been repeatedly reporting on more firearms offenses, drug-related offenses. There's another very significant drug seizures. Got a little bit later here, but certainly we're concerned with that kind of stuff. We're glad to see that got intercepted, but makes you wonder how many of those we missed. You know, obviously get 100% of it comes out. Very briefly, attempt suicide, male bleeding heavily from his arm, later determined to be harmed himself intentionally. Historical harassment investigation that was initiated by the OPB, but took place in our location. Investigation grounds were not established charges. We reported last month on something that had been referred over to us from Corrections Canada in relation to inmate there that looks to have had some kind of a fraud committed as a result of the power of attorney that was in place. They continue to work on that. Both corrections and the victim are currently not prepared to move forward with the full investigation at this time. They're working on trying to resolve some of the protections related to the financial interests of that person before this carries on. So I anticipate we'll get that back in 4 or 5 months since that's been dealt with. We did went the longest time without an overdose, probably 6 months. Years on September 15th, the 21-year-old male cause of death believed to be drug overdose at this point. Another harassment investigation that resulted in no criminal charges. And then we have a big drug seizure here. So this was a culmination of the project done by our drug unit. September 28th, 22-year-old Brampton man arrested by police found to be in possession of large quantity of drugs. 247.5 grams of fentanyl. That's pretty much a half a pound of fentanyl. Broken down, that's 2,400 doses. Any one of those can be fatal, which is seeing over the years they're increasing numbers. So, that is a very large seizure in any town down in the GTA. That's a big fentanyl seizure. Also, there are 93 grams of methamphetamine and close to $3,000 in Canadian currency. List of charges there for that man shown, and total street value of $108,000 in drugs. Sergeant Baker's been tasked with a YPRD complaint. Had a number of them recently. Don't really think it's reflective of a change in our complaints process, but when I'm starting to read them, I'm seeing a lot of names on the bottom that are newer. There's been a lot of changeover at the OSPSB in terms of staff there, and I'm also seeing ones that I wouldn't have expected would have been screened in the past. So I'm not sure we're necessarily seeing a kind of a marked increase in our complaints. I think what we're seeing is probably less screening happening at the OSPSB. So the matters that are coming forward that we're going to be looking into that I think otherwise may not have been taken on as complaint. I could just see that working pretty well. The remainder of the report, just it's under uniform assistance matters. One follow-up that I'll mention or what's going on is homicide. Repeatedly, it's now been working its way through a number of weeks of court. It's just back again this week for the preliminary hearing, and it's taking up quite a number of our officers' time over the last number of weeks. CID has been very busy up in court. Hoping that maybe there's a resolution that may be coming to that a little bit sooner, but still taking up a lot of our time. The MHART statistics are also there, as well as training meetings. Our drug overdose information, our drug overdose is now sit at 5. We're still very much better off than where we were in 2021, where we had 14 by the end of the year. So now we're moving through October with total of 5. Still not good, but improves. That is CIB and drugs. Now move to the auxiliary unit. September 10th, auxiliary assisted with a bicycle rodeo at the farmers market. 2 members down for that. As you're aware, we're filming a promotional video for the police service, so the auxiliary was part of that. That's an ongoing filming at a number of different locations throughout the city. That is our Constable Martin, Constable Willis is helping with that as well. So we're looking forward to seeing what that's going to look like when it comes out. There's some preparation happening right now for our annual festive food drive. As you're aware, auxiliary Constable Barber stepped down this year, and it's leaving a very big gap. That was Dave's claim to fame for many years here, and he put many hours into doing that. So we're hoping to have a big response for that again this year with another member that's stepped up to take that on. So We've had a number of members. COVID was not good to the auxiliary only because we had them sit down for the better part of 2 years. So we're having trouble re-engaging with some of our members. They've been out of it so long, we're not seeing a lot of interest back with them. So we're, I don't want to say clearing house, but we're going through and finding out which members are still active and which ones aren't. We've had another resignation here as a result. So Josh Harris has resigned from the unit, but we do have a gap now in numbers. So over the last number of weeks, we've had postings out looking to recruit for our auxiliary unit. We haven't been seeing as many as we would like. We have a few there. We're starting to go through that, but we are down in numbers right now. As far as our auxiliary goes, hoping to get a class running this winter to try and beat those numbers up. But that's a work in progress. So we're also having to look at how the Festival of Northern Lights and the auxiliary food drive is going to look this year. With a lot of workload spread out over small numbers. 11 shifts of ride along, still with 93 volunteer hours donated by leads.
Quick question, John, for auxiliary. They have to be 18 years of age and older. I'm thinking about the, I think Army cadets, air cadets. I think the kids age out at 18 or is it 16? Not sure. I'm just thinking about kids that are in organizations as potential groups to maybe that are accustomed to being in sort of groups and uniforms. There might be a chance there.
Yeah.
One time, just throwing that out as an idea.
Okay. Thanks. So on the core unit for September, we're now up to 3 members with the addition of Councilor Richmond. That's all tied to the core grant we received reported on prior. They've been working a fair bit with Grey County Housing with a number of the apartment buildings that continue to have issues. That's all part of the proactive response that it's good to have back here, and we focus on the dividends and reducing our call volume because they're dealing with some of these issues before they become calls. The Reach Center, that's actually been interesting over the last 2 or 3 weeks now. We now have members from Reach coming in here with their tree cart every Wednesday, and we've actually been doing very well. It's been very well received. They bring in their cart, basically building some ovens and squares and this sort of thing. It's been very worthwhile for them. We were wondering numbers and that sort of thing. Doing very well, and they're very happy with the outcome of the It's actually, it's nice to have the members come around, chat with them. It's great. See that continue. All of the foot and bike patrol locations are listed there. 7.5 hours of foot patrol, 8 hours of bike patrol through the month of September. We actually picked up as part of the core grant 2 e-bikes that have been quite useful that we started using. So, that's an addition to our fleet that came out of grant funding. Or has been utilized on a number of occasions. CIB, that search warrant that we reported on. OPP conducted the large project takedown in September, and 2 of many warrants were on sound area. Of course, assisted those. The serving subpoenas under homicide. And a number of investigations that they've been working on campus, as well as submissions happening in the southwest area of the city. They're doing excellent role both on the bikes and on foot for those. And in terms of, they've been looking at North Grey or the public library with regards to drug activity, loitering, that sort of thing. Chief Inspector Cooney had gone down and met with the librarian as well with regards to one specific area that you're able to get over the fence, basically get down into the drainage area in front of the library, and that's where some of the problems are coming. So actually, Constable Edmiston took it upon himself to meet with one of the local high schools here in the tech program and doing some work trying to link up project between the library and the school, which would allow for some decorative metal work to be put on addition to the fence, make it harder to get access to that area that's been causing problems. It's good to see you took the initiative to do that. Carter Tire continues to be having complaints that we've been addressing before. We get contact from Grey County with respect to the rail trail and ATVs being on it. We put a bunch of time in there, not encountered any ATVs as of yet, but it's done some education on that as well. This is Grey County. That's pretty much the end of the report. Questions?
You mentioned that we chatted with bylaw regarding the encampments. Are there that many encampments still in the city and where?
I haven't heard lately in terms of last month or so. They do tend to be seasonal. But definitely we're still doing our numbers still out there. Some of the locations have been reduced. Used to be in my public health. We've got a lot of the bush down there. It's kind of dispersed occasionally in through more rugged parts, Garrison Park, sort of.
No,
Jason Granny.
up in the commercial area, up little areas like that, so it's in the power, but then they move.
Because it was, used to be up behind Staples, the beer store on the west side.
All right, for collisions, we had 44 during the month of September. 20 on the east side, 9 on the west side, and 15 parking lots. And one more by the reporting center, 26 fire officers. And that's up over the same time last year, and it was slightly over August. I noticed that our number of collisions had started to creep up, and so I had a look at the statistics for the past 10 years. What's happening is during COVID, our collisions came down, so we're just creeping back up to the level where they are. Usually we range in the period between 500 to 400 to 600 collisions. And that's everything on collisions, unless there's any questions. Moving on to community service office, Jason's been busy as usual. Had a very successful event that the start of September. The Wheels and Ride event in partnership with the city of Oak Sound and the River District. Educating children on bike road that they have. It's very successful. We also had the barbecue. Just touching on some other items. He's been doing some work at the Street Resource Center. The other side of that area. We had courses busy time of the year with school starting again. That means work with our district board and district board, French Catholic board, and also the Christian school. Jason is trained in prevention designs. Businesses and other establishments and assist them with improving things on the properties to make them comfortable to behind lighting and things like that. I did community presentations, very food service. Was looking at some programs they were doing and also delivered on off the street to Georgia College students home and also like safety presentations. The took part in training, also wellness training, also rigorous integration partnership training, trainer program, hiring. And that's just highlights from community services. There's no questions. We'll move on to lost hours and training. We had 8 full-time members report sick or injured. We had 2 members on WSID for 200 hours. One of the WSID cases, one was on modified duties. That's surgery. The other was long-term. For training, we have 2 recruits down at the college. They started in September. We have 1 drug course, 2 members taking the fossilized course for sciences, and several members of the services training at Silver Lake Camp to invite red light. Red tail on training consulting. This training was organized by the service in partnership with non-religious and that's it for lost hours of training. Moving on to frontline patrol, we had 154 heavy traffic charges, 15 compliances, 61 cautions, 141 criminal charges, and we had 121 hours for control provided by our 23 ride programs. Also on September 3rd, we hosted a joint forces ride program with police services at various locations. Checked, 3 breath tests administered, 10 HD warnings and charges issued. That is one of the busiest begins. Even the sound inside the fish derby. That's all. The director, let me make it clear this month, about being related to the court manager's conference. Handling her reports, board bylaws, taxi license and 4 license issued to member. We're near there. As well as sports, 7 persons here in custody, here by audio. Total special counsel hours 1,181. And transport service to consistent with the year before. Hours here, some of that's related to the changes that are starting to come back now. In September, also covered a bit of our started in this in terms of records, I believe this is an all-time high in terms of number of officers. 14,125 last it's now 11,000. So it's very cool. That's basically level the year before. As Chief mentioned, one of our part-time members working the land was well. It's injured right now, so this is see those findings. Actually, that's services. Oh, actually, so Suzanne's report here, our calls for service significantly increased over the same time last year, September 2021. at 13,073 calls for service. Our calls last month were 1,672 for a 19% increase over that time. Overall, this year, we had an increase of almost 6%.
Any reason for the increase in regulation?
Some of COVID and part of it,
Things don't do.
I think what we saw increases before and some of the higher priority calls, but we also increases in the priority war also. Thanks for that. Smaller problems.
So Jeff, you say coming out of COVID, that's statistically because more people doing more things, or are you finding, sort of, going to be a rejection of COVID rules that were masked, that whole in the establishment. Hearing more complaints about people speeding down their street, a little less respect for traffic laws. You guys finding that too? That
Yeah, they're not statistical-wise as far as the number of complaints. But yes, it does seem like we're getting a lot more coming in, a lot more complaints about speeding or aggressive driving. We have our STEP program, so we do a special traffic enforcement program to focus on one particular thing for the month. And so that's our focus on this aggressive driving, so speeding, impaired driving, distracted driving, things like that. And then we've also had more communications with city over downloading requests for different designs of streets, when people requesting stop signs or street signs, where they're the
I'm just wondering if sort of a lack of respect for law that's, and I'm coming out of COVID, not just statistically, but sort of that, it's almost like the, and maybe from the last pandemic, the early 1920s as being the free for all, whatever it was, big gathering, a little bit of a lack of respect for laws, sort of a freedom, I think that.
COVID definitely certainly related to regard to all of us people going back and forth to work. Creating numbers from like it's an all and that it's sort of very breaking know how to find those a bunch of things when they happen. We had a question from our next month, I think we probably should have on our horizon. The problem seems like the most of it's related to the economy or oil and gas drive on shop their breaking average that's what those groceries and so more expensive and see push environment stuff see the point of holiday season it's the best times we have spikes to shop expensive eat and all that sort of stuff and take a use of it. Any other questions? So our IT section has been extremely busy over the past month. You're on any project, installing equipment for the fire departments. You're on County at 13 geographical locations, totaling approximately 40 devices. So we have over 10 homes, spending a lot of time there. Other items, onboarding of the Dundalk City Fire Department, as well as the Highlands Fire Department,
system that you're administering. IT also upgraded all the Sun Shores, service mobile data terminals, brand refresh. On board for police, mobile dispatch on the existing team. Happening this fall. Next Gen 911 progress continues. Network installations by Bell at our alternate location. It's nearing completion for the end of October, November. And then the training for dispatchers on the new system, phones, bringing in next gen calls for service. Location. And once all this work is done, we'll phone system development site will be discontinued. The primary site will follow approximately 6 months. That's it for 18.
Cycle so like doing the numbers, we'll see we have a plot for the 1.17% variance this month. Usually under the driven by increased staffing costs and training and things go up and go up. This is the timeline there. One of the areas over $110,000 equipment that I'm actually working with the last quarter. A lot of that has to do with figure out so we haven't seen the offset that cost. So as well, you see they're seeking projection from city finance overall at the end of October yesterday. Opportunity to do that. Yesterday, there's the projection for October from the end of the year, but that doesn't include the see that includes the offset equipment and the dispatch services that we're taking on the ground. So I don't anticipate there will be an motion here. This is that's what yeah, we're still working on that. We spoke to January 1st of this year. This is the city side. So you'll see also the course during costs will continue to increase. They will put in some of that is based on there are no questions on this one for the next one. There was several last month involved by raising child rights. Almost advisory committee meeting prepare us the library, compounds, and the compounds, and staff. And promotional video. Yeah.
Right, so going to, other items of business. Any issues with it, that's not. And again, which is not really basic. Also, see the letter from farm stock regarding the environmental service. So it's to continue with that. 2000. As you know, current on the visitor, sharing. So looking for second. All in favor? So a very quick update on the final policy review plan and
We have provided date with all of our policy procedures. We will be on Monday, and we might call them. I think it's back the updated version. Like the new year.
should be yeah, exactly.
Just a comment on that as well. We will all procedures now. Start getting signed up with the online system last week. Software, so as they roll out,
We're getting very close to getting into the quality assurance subcommittee group in the province, so that he'll have access and be able to communicate with all the other policy and procedure writers in the province. They have a few questions, etc. But it's going to be on the other side, that we're considerable, even though there's some experience. So I think we'll be able to make that probably in the next week or two. And as a result of communicating with them, it looks like we can probably get more business from the other services.
not just stuff as well.
Yeah.
Much services involved. More options. Exactly. Required updates for that.
For example, consideration was running the partnership of
of life. He was a good spectator in both partnership and housing. And this was good possible time for him to be. I think it's a good idea that you can the opportunity to services and progress business.
All in favor? Okay.
Well, just earlier, perhaps it was in the closed session, there was a question about the board appointments which show on the bylaw, the city bylaw, the same thing, however, important to response back from city clerk, saying that sending this information, council elect the staff community the information, the term continues until its successor is appointed. Councilor Tammy will continue on this board until November 21st. After the declaration of office is taken, the council consent will alphabetically assign the new members until selections are made in January. So November 21st and January will be soon will be for the person sitting for John. And
Yes. Any other items? Or we completed already, but we cleared out the session. And we want to take a